Okay, thank you. Right. So welcome to our session this evening. Sorry, I got late. We have a storm down here and I had to rush out and go pick my daughter from somewhere. So my apologies for joining late, plus I had technical issues. But I'm here, so we get it moving. So this is Agile Austin Coaching Meetup. We are glad you guys have joined us and you're glad you're here. And we have the hosts. I'm one of the hosts, Francisca Ramoni. We have Samira. She has introduced herself. And then Sid, I believe you introduced yourself maybe before I joined.
No, we've just been chatting informally.
Okay.
But
go ahead.
go ahead.
We're good.
You're good?
But we can. That way we have it for the recording. So that way our future audience knows as well.
Yeah.
So hi, my name is Samira. I'm based in San Angelo, Texas. I'm a project manager in digital transformation. This is year 22 in industry for me. But something consistent is I always find I learn so much from coaching communities. So I'm really excited to be here today and throughout the year to bring these topics and learn together.
Thank you. Sid, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And if you move to the next slide, it shows our faces and our titles. It's great. I'm Sid Markle, and I've been hosting this for the last couple of years. Tonight is actually my last time hosting, and I'm really excited to hand over to Fran and to Samira as they take on the role. I know they're going to bring in other great topics and continue to grow this community, although I will still be attending, so you will still see my face. I just will not be the person hosting in the future. But I'm so excited to be here tonight and to hear from Cara, and thank you.
Thank you so much. So in Agile Austin Coaching Meetup, what do? We build the Agile community. We help Agilists improve their coaching skills. So we are here to help you upscale.
Hi, Fran.
We have
just a quick tech check.
Yeah.
Just in case you have two screens, we can just see the first slide at the moment.
Can you see that slide?
It's still on the first one for us.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, that's why Sid was saying go to the next slide. I wasn't getting it. Thank you.
It happens to me too when I have two screens. It's moving on one, but not the other.
Yeah. All right. So I've talked about what we do. We build Agile communities. We help Agilists and each other here to improve our coaching skills. We upscale. Then we have monthly conversations, just like these ones that build an Agile coaching competency. How we do it, we meet every first Monday of the month, like today, 6:15, and we go ahead and have a topic and we talk about it and we just chat and interact and network. So our expectations here are that as a host, we'll be facilitating any questions and conversations which may arise. We have speakers who are going to be able to share what they have, discussion. You can ask questions. We encourage all attendees to engage, be on mute when you're not speaking, so that, we can have a very easy conversations. If you need anything, please raise up your hand, ask the host in the chat and we'll follow up with you. And, if we don't have an answer, we can follow up and give you an answer later on. And then with that also, we have our mission. Our mission at Agile Austin is connecting with people and foster professional growth through collaborative events, which educate our community on uncovering better ways to deliver value through Agile values, principles, and practices. And with that, we also have our other meetups group, which you can join. We have the book club, we have Agile at Glance, at scale, we have Agile coaching, AI and product, leaders, and lean and Kanban. These are meetup groups you can join to just go ahead there and learn something, collaborate and upscale. And then we have our sponsors. So we want to thank our sponsors who are platinum sponsors. We have Agile Velocity, silver sponsors, Ad Melora Coaching. These are our great sponsors, and we really like to thank them for helping us with this meetup. So these are still our sponsors, and our work in Austin Agile community would not be possible without support of sponsors. We offer a variety of sponsorship levels. You can consider joining and being a sponsor today. You can also decide to join as a member. You can just go through our website and you can join. And then these are our board members. So we have Max Ekesi, Lee Allison, Angela Tedoni, and Scott Kellin. Then we have Ben Rogers.
If I might jump in here, we need there's been an update to that board and it just came out yesterday. So it's not published here yet, but there are several new board members, and not that it matters, but if anybody is interested in connecting with the board, you can reach us through that URL, that board at agileaustin.com.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for coming. And Samia, would you like to introduce our speaker? I'll stop sharing.
So I am so excited to have Cara here today. And my understanding is she has a really interactive session for us. So please feel free to participate, interject, ask questions, and really absorb, take away, and participate. So Cara is an Agilist, a Scrum Master, and a teacher with over a decade of experience and really around creating meaningful and engaging group learning development opportunities, which is a lot really packed all in one. So I'm excited about today's topic. She has a background in crafting safe and respectful learning environments. This helps teams collaborate towards their goals. Her areas of focus are around increasing efficient and intentional communication, intercultural competence, which I think is really relevant for us today. So many of us work in such global areas and teams, and group productivity. So thank you so much. And with that, Cara, I'll turn it over to you.
There you go. Once I entered share screen, the button moved to the top of the page, and that was it for me. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to share this presentation with you and to get your input. It's one of my favorite presentations because each time I do it, I get so many different ideas shared, and it helps me grow as well. So I'm really excited to jump into this with you. I've dropped the link in the chat for the mural board that we'll be using today. You'll get the most out of the presentation if you can open the mural board, but I'm also sharing it on my screen as well. If you've not used Mural before, it can be a little intimidating. My recommendation would be to find the purple start here in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Then if you zoom in from there, I have my contact information linked, but there's also a section for tips for you. So how to zoom in and out, how to move left and right, how to add information or interact with the board. It's a very similar tool. We'll dive into that in a second. But before we get any further in, I'd like to bring our attention to the waiting room. So it's this second column right here. And what I'd like to do is take a second and have you all add a picture of your favorite childhood movie or TV show. There's directions written there for how to add images to a mural board if you haven't done that already, or if you haven't used one already. This is one of my strategies for starting off my virtual meetings. It could be that awkward wait time at the beginning. Is a great way to kind of fill it in, learn a little bit about your team. We'll talk more about ways that you can use it in a second, but I'll let you go ahead and start adding your images. If you also want to add a text icon below your image so that we can see whose images belong to whom, that's also a fun way to engage here. Oh, there's some great ones here. I haven't thought about Sinbad in probably close to 2 decades. Fun, a classic, a classic.
I appreciate Anastasia already being on there. Just gotta say.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you. Oh, there's some great ones in here. Mary Poppins, love it. Sid, I recognize the character, but I couldn't tell you what show that's from. What is that?
It was Rain Right. So
Yeah,
this is from the 80s because I am an 80s child. So Rain
excellent.
Right.
Excellent. And Ulysses 31. I've never even heard of that. Who posted the Ulysses 31?
I didn't post it, but I think it's Ulysses, like a sci-fi space thing, wasn't it?
Oh, that's Michael.
It was indeed. I think it's French.
Oh,
Ah,
excellent. Zuli, what's yours from?
Hi, this is Candy Candy. It's like a, I don't know, it's something that we saw in Latin American a lot.
Got some Little Mermaid.
It's a Japanese one.
Oh, very cool. Like an anime style.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's see. Oh, Mira, was that from your trip? Perhaps, perhaps. Excellent. As we're adding this in, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about this strategy and some different ways that you can use it. So the benefits are it's a great way to get your team familiar with the platform that we're going to be using. So if you posted something, you've now practiced already engaging with Mural Board. So whether you're using Miro, Mural, Jamboard, some other program that your company uses, is a great way to make sure that all of your participants understand how to post and you're eliminating barriers for engagement just through the tech interface piece. I've also noticed with my teams, it encourages on-time early arrival. People have fun adding them in, and you can do a variety of fun prompts or you can do more serious prompts. I like to change it up so that, you know, they might be really excited to come in for a fun prompt. We might have a fun prompt, but we might have one like, hey, what's one word that describes your feeling about the project right now? And you might get some real mixed bag responses with that one, but you might also get some real insights into how the team is functioning right now. You can do what's your favorite winter activity. There are a lot of different prompts that get them in. So it's both the team builder, it's a technology platform, way to get acquainted with what you're going to be doing as a team. And it can be a great way to kind of reduce that awkward fill time at the beginning. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself first. So I'm a Scrum Master, a former middle school teacher, and a toddler mom, which I like to joke is the trifecta of you can't scare me. I have a pet cat I adore. I video game, I love cooking, and I love crafting. I want to tell you a little bit about tonight as well. Tonight, what I really want you to be asking as we go through this presentation is, what do I want engagement to look like on my team? You're going to see hopefully things that are fun and engaging, but I also want you to be thinking really critically about, how can I use this strategy to elicit this type of response? How can I use this, polling platform to really dive deep on a particular issue we're struggling with as a team? So engagement isn't just about having fun with your team. It's not just team builders, but it's being really intentional about what activities, what prompts are you presenting to get what kind of engagement out of your team. In education, we talk a lot about engagement versus compliance. Compliance is people going through the motions. They're doing the activity because it's been asked of them. A lot of times you get some minimal input. Engagement is ways that pull new answers, new ways of thinking out of your team. So really taking a look at, what is a consistent embedded practice that I would like to set up with my team versus a checklist? And it kind of ties into the conversation we're having before the meet started, but engagement is really based in trust and relationship. If you want someone to give an authentic response, if you want them to understand or believe you when you say it's okay to fail. It's okay to bring new information in. It's okay to experiment. Then you kind of have to walk the walk with it. So the more consistent you are with this type of engagement strategy, the more you'll be getting back in return from your teams. I'm going to pause us real quick. We're going to visit strategy 2 before we jump into our next one. But this board itself is a strategy for online engagement. If you use a program like Mural or Miro, visuals help increase retention. It's interactive. So members of your team who might be a little shy to verbally contribute have ways to do it in text or through image on the screen. It lets some of your planners preview materials ahead of time, which can be a double-edged sword, but a lot of people who are sometimes reluctant to share on the spot do a lot better if they can see ahead of time what are the types of questions or activities that I need to prepare for, or how can I organize my thinking before I go into this meeting so that I can actually practice saying it in a way that's going to make sense to other people and makes me feel comfortable sharing my ideas as well. As a presenter, it's also a great way to make sure that you are tracking and following your agenda, right? It helps limit some of that sidetracking. Any questions so far? We've jumped into 2 different strategies and the overall theme for the night. All right. Well, that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into strategy 3, which is gamification. And I'm going to go ahead and have you go to gimkit.com/join. I'm going to set up our game real quick. And we're gonna test your knowledge on something that theoretically everyone has at least a passing understanding of, our Disney princesses. Let's see. We're going to be playing a game called The Floor is Lava, and it's very much in line with the way you probably played when you're little. It's just a digital version. Our code for today is going to be 344096. And I'll post that in the chat as well. So you click the link that Samira posted for us and then enter that 344096. We'll get set up for our game. Essentially, the floor is lava. And we need to work as a team to answer questions. The more questions you answer correctly, the more in-game coins you can use to spend to build a tower so that we survive the lava increase. If you can, the easiest way to play this, or the most fun way to play this right now, is to split your screen so you can see what I'm sharing on one half of your screen and the game on the second side of the screen. We're going to wait just another minute or 2. We've got 7 people in our game. We've got Katiana, Michael, Talisha, Samira, Regina, Sammy, and Sid already loaded in. Very good. Mira has joined us. Any questions on joining or how to get access? Very good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start our game. As you're playing, we're answering questions about Disney princesses, but I want you to be thinking about what type of questions could you see using with your teams? All right, now, if you've got split screen, on my screen, you can see our current tower and lava level. On your screen, there should be questions about the Disney princesses.
Cara, oh wait, there it is. I lost your screen, but now I see it. Okay.
Okay, very good.
You might have to click a tab. You can see the meeting, or you can see Cara's screen if anybody else had that happen.
Sammy has built our first block for our tower. Well done. Katiana put in a plank. Michael put in a plank. Excellent work. Excellent work. Now, at this point, as a facilitator, I find that there's two ways that you can have your team now engage with each other. You could prompt them or remind them that if they're struggling to answer a question, they could come off mute to seek assistance from a team member. You could say, hey, if you're having a hard time understanding or finding the shop to buy planks or bricks, you could ask your fellow players for assistance. Or you could kind of let them keep playing in silence, in silos by themselves, which could be a really powerful conversation at the end of the game about what communication is looking like on your team right now. Sammy, Sid, nice work. Tatiana got that brick. Now, for those of you who aren't able to see my screen with the screen sharing, the lava is starting to rise and catch up a bit. If you've been answering questions and banking coin, might be a great time to drop into the shop.
Who turned their mother into a bear? Was it Aurora or Merida?
Marita.
Thank you.
Ah, we died.
Oh, the lava caught up. The lava caught up.
I didn't realize you were supposed to buy things the whole time.
Yeah, I know. I was just panicking the whole time and like, I have to get these all right.
But
Rather than buy stuff. Sorry, guys.
crossing that 3-minute mark is already an accomplishment for a first-time attempt with the floor is lava. You should be proud. Go ahead and give yourselves a round of applause.
Great job, guys. Great job.
I can definitely see how this would build like team camaraderie.
So that actually brings us back to our mural board, Sid. You're reading my mind over here. On our mural board, right below where it says strategy 3, it asks, how could you use this strategy with your team? What purposes or topics could you see using here? Now that could be asking you about what kind of questions you put in, but like Sid just said, building that camaraderie would be an important piece. I have found that with teams that are not super communicative, after we play the first round, it's 3 minutes, right? We play that first round. A lot of those same comments that we heard in our session take place, right? Oh, I didn't realize I was supposed to. Oh, I didn't know I could. Oh, so we do another round, right? And suddenly they're asking questions. They're playing in new ways. They're like, hey, how did you get the brick? How did you get the plank, right? When we finish our second round, we usually stay alive a little longer that second round because they're actually starting to work together. That in and of itself can turn into a really productive conversation about, hey, how does this relate to this story we haven't been able to move this entire sprint, right? It could easily transfer to a conversation about, are we talking as much about things when we're mobbing as we were when we were mobbing on this game right now? There are a lot of ways to bring in reflective practices for the teams, like operating MO by playing the game, let alone picking questions that in and of itself help your team move through a new piece. So some of the comments that we have in here is to break the ice prior to a first sprint, for fun, to encourage communication, learning to talk and collaborate. Starting with fun gets people to work together, a review of concepts while building the feeling of being a team. One of the ways that I've done this before is to review working agreements. So they have to ask, where is our source of truth, right? Or what are our core hours, or a lot of those pieces, right? Now you're reviewing things for the team that as a 5-minute meeting where you're reading off, hey, remember this was our agreement. It's now a little more gamified, it's a little more engaging. If you're having trouble with team dynamics, a lot of times you can do your team norms this way, just as a refresher. And that can even bring in conversations of like, hey, this came up 3 times as a question for me and I don't understand what it means, or I don't agree with this, maybe we need to change it. And now you've got more functional conversations about broader pieces. You can do it as just a quick one-off. Or you could build it into a retrospective if you have a specific area you're trying to target them towards. GimKit itself as a website has, I think, over somewhere around 15 different games at this point. They are collaborative team games. They can be one-on-one team games. There's a game where it's one player against the rest of the team. And so when we're coming back to the purpose of tonight, asking what does engagement look like on your team, do you want them to practice something where they're competing against each other and then have a conversation about that? Or do you want them to do an experience where they are trying to work collaboratively? There's a lot of different ways that you could apply the different games that are found within this website. Any questions so far? This does bring us to our 4th strategy, which is wait time. I'm going to read through this and then I'm going to put out an awkward amount of wait time. Wait time is really important, especially in the online format. Giving a few more seconds of that wait time might let someone who was taking notes but needs to now find their mouse and get it to the right spot and unmute so they ask a question. It gives them time to access that. It also puts a little heat on the spot sometimes. Two of the big challenges with wait time are having an overtalker or getting people to participate to begin with. And a lot of times if you have an overtalker, setting one-on-one challenges with them privately can help them recognize their role within the team. So if Katiana, and I'm going to pick on Katiana because I know Katiana, but if Katiana is the first one to answer every question, every time, she's the only one kind of putting out there, I might schedule a one-on-one with Katiana where I'm like, hey, I'm loving this leadership style. But I'm worried that we're not hearing other voices, or I'd really like to help grow your leadership style in a way that's going to help our team become more collaborative. And setting challenges depending on how Katiana receives that conversation. Say, hey, I'd love you to try waiting 1 minute before you come up with a question. Or I'd love you to try a 3 before me, where Katiana has to wait for 3 different people to share out or ask a question before she's allowed to step in. And if Katiana is a talker, that's going to be very difficult, but it is a slight gamification, but it also brings her awareness to it in and of itself, where she's realizing, oh, I am over talking, or I have to talk right now. I haven't waited for my 3. You can use that same strategy of the one-on-one skill building before a group meeting for the opposite side of the spectrum as well. So if you're having trouble getting people to participate, you can do a one-on-one with that person and ask, where is this coming from? Kind of getting to the root of the non-participation. Sometimes it's just that they like to think out what they want to say before they say it. And online, they don't feel like they have enough time to formulate what they want to present before they've moved on to a new topic. Sometimes it's the online platform in and of itself. Sometimes, especially with developers, there can be some imposter syndrome happening where they are worried that they are not performing at the same level as the rest of the team. There's a great book called Immunity to Change, and it's hyperlinked on Amazon on this yellow sticky that I'm moving around a bit. But it actually walks through how you can begin that conversation with people and different prompts that could be helpful in starting to lead them through coming to that next level of comfort in presenting out loud. That being said, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to ask for either ways that you have encouraged your undertalkers to participate, ways that you have seen overtalkers learn to balance, or if there are any general questions about anything that we've talked about so far.
Could you please provide the name of the book one more time?
Definitely. It's in this section, it's called Immunity to Change. I'll go ahead and post another link in the chat.
Thank you.
Now, I myself struggle with awkward wait times and giving times. So what I will sometimes do for myself is start a 30-second timer or a minute timer on my own phone, and tell myself that I'm not allowed to move the team forward until the timer goes off. That wait time can feel uncomfortable, but again, that can turn into a reflective process during retrospective or during a meeting where you're like, hey, there's a lot of dead time in our meetings. What are ways that we could change that to be more effective? Should we be coming up with questions as we're going? Should we be, are the questions that I'm asking not relevant to you? Should I be pushing you in a different direction as your Scrum Master, or are there ways that you can build our team forward? I'm going to go ahead and shift us into strategy 5. We've talked about how some participants who are less likely to participate verbally might be more willing to participate in a written format, right? Being able to type in their responses. So what I'm going to introduce is one of my chat strategies for pulling out more than just a yes or a good or a nothing when people are typing in their responses. Strategy 5 is coming up with higher order thinking chat prompts that make teams intellectually engage with the topic, but are still kind of entertaining. They're different. They shake things out of the norm. We're going to start with a strategy called emoji because blank. So the prompt is, what was your overall impression of GimKit or being able to use something like GimKit with your team? And your task, don't post yet, but your task is going to be responding with an emoji because, and then explain in the chat. Here's the rule. You cannot pick the standard array of emojis. So you cannot do thumbs up or smile or heart. You have to pick something that's a little more unique. One example is a bed because it felt comfortable, or the alien because it felt strange. If you are unsure how to access your emojis or the non-standard emojis in Zoom, the directions are right above that on our mural board. So step 1 and step 2 for finding the more unique emojis. So when you're ready, go ahead and post. Wow. And I could have waited an extra 30 seconds. We just had an excellent post come through in the chat. So while you guys are starting to put in your emoji because blank, I'm going to read this out. With overtalkers, sometimes I found that people are not used to not being heard, or they need more time to discuss. She schedules one-on-ones with those people to give them time to talk through their points, and then develop the bullets for the team meeting so that they have them like a brief for the version. She works with a lot of people, technical people that are new to working with each other and sometimes new to the project. So sometimes they're not sure how much to share, how little to share. They're trying to read the room. Excellent. All right, and our emoji, because blanks are starting to come in. So Regina posted the 2 tap dancing twins because it was collaborative. No worries, Sid, there's no judgment. It is okay to fail per our earlier conversation. Just jump in and try again. Ah, yeah, she likes trivia and she wanted to make sure that she was answering the questions. As a Scrum Master, as I'm reading through this is also telling me how I can inform my next steps. So Sid's comment about not understanding there was both a trivia and a building piece tells me as a Scrum Master that when I'm giving instructions, I need to be more clear in presenting those 2 elements. Fairy, because it was beautiful. Parrot, because you'll be repeating this information. That's clever, that's clever. Handshake, because of teamwork. Ooh, a raven, because interesting. Fran, can you tell us more about that one? Why did you pick the raven?
For me, I thought the whole exercise is very interesting because there's a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of mind-triggering stuff going on. And so it's really interesting how it's a diverse group and everybody can come together and, build something. Example, when we are doing the lava, there's kind of competition and everybody was working through building that. And so I find the whole thing very interesting.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And we're going to give just another little bit there. Regina felt the same about understanding both pieces. Juggling, for splitting attention. That's a good one, Sammy. They've done this with teams before, and oftentimes things that I thought went really well, sometimes I'll get an emoji that expresses frustration from someone that was just kind of overlooked in the entire process. So when I'm like, oh yeah, this went really well. Everyone understood everything. And then if I just give a simple, tell me how you think, that's just the thumbs up or a thumbs down. But when I utilize a prompt that actually requires them to put a little more in, then I start understanding, okay, what can I be facilitating better? Where can I provide more guidance, or where do I maybe need to back off entirely? Thoughts or questions about strategy 5?
I have a question. So where have you found this strategy 5 really effective?
Great question. I have done them during stand-up type meetings to see if okay, what are our blockers? How are you feeling about this? Right? I use them most often as retros at the end of meetings, or sometimes a great place for them is if you've had something through a parking lot. So let's say you're having your stand-up, you put something in a parking lot, you come back to it at the end, right? It's just a small group of people who are working on this particular question or who need to follow up. And then throwing this out there once it's already an established practice to make sure that everyone is ready to move on, right? So at the end of having broken out after your stand-up, there's a group of 3 of you. Are you all actually ready? Are you all actually feeling like you're on the same page? It can be a great way to, if you've got like impromptu not stand-up meetings, but just like meetings that pop up. Let's see, where could some of you see utilizing a strategy like this on the current team that you're working on?
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about a retro. It could really go well with retrospective. I know you mentioned that, and that's what actually popped in my mind. And I was thinking, like, what other places can you always use it? But it's good for retrospective. It's good for maybe breaking down the vision, of the product, so that people can come up and say exactly what they think about the product or the process. Are we in alignment? Are we in agreement? Are we there? Do we understand what is required or not? So by using those emojis and not just saying yes, no, or I don't understand it, they can always use that for us to understand exactly where they are.
exactly. Samira just posted in the chat that she could see using this as a wellness check for how people are feeling about the current workloads.
Mhm.
And then being able to break the ice so they can have more realistic conversations. I could also see this being a really powerful tool in sprint planning. Are the things that we're committing to actually in our wheelhouse, are they achievable? Are we feeling like we're on the same page? How close are we to the sprint goal and the things that we're picking?
Yeah.
Michael says rating the value of a meeting.
Yeah, I like that too.
If you have I know, for example, sometimes when you are either new to a team or you get to a place where things have become a little stagnant, teams can say, well, there's no point to a retro. It's the same thing every time. Being able to ask like, well, what would you like out of a retro, but in an emoji format? Or what would you add or change, or how do you feel about it? Yeah, you're bringing in and you're rating, you're giving feedback at that point. And then as a Scrum Master, you take the results, maybe you save the chat, maybe you select all, copy paste, and you can go through it later and start figuring out what is your next step. How do you lead this team in the direction they want to go in? All right, score 1 for the awkward wait time at the end. Well done, team. Strategy 6, I'm gonna go ahead and move us on to, is a pre-thinking activity. So I'm gonna separate these two things. Our pre-thinking activity is a word cloud, but the pre-thinking activity in and of itself is a strategy. So for example, if you used the emoji chat to prompt your team to reflect on a specific thing before you have the in-depth conversation, that's a pre-thinking activity. You're setting the stage, you're getting them in that mindset for what you want to have the actual conversation about. You're getting them to start thinking about it before the conversation itself. I like to use word clouds to do this because you get a splay of everyone's ideas in the room. But a pre-thinking activity is anything that you do to set the stage. So if you're doing your retro, you can just jump in and with your questions for the retro, or you can do an activity that sets the stage. You could use Gimkit as your pre-thinking activity, setting a task in there where they're pitted against each other. And then you have a conversation about the information or the strategy or something that you were seeing, setting the stage to get them thinking about it in a way that lowers the barriers and defenses. So it doesn't feel like you're saying, hey, we need to fix this, or hey, this is a problem. It's having them generate those ideas on their own so that the real meat of the conversation can take place. So we're going to be using a website called pollev.com, and I'm going to post the link for that in the chat. If it prompts you to register, just click skip now, skip now. You don't need to register. If you wanted to, you could set up essentially like a class and have your team do it, and then it records. That's not exactly what we're doing here. A word cloud is a strategy where you pose a question to your group and then they respond to it, and reoccurring words get bigger and less frequently used words are smaller. So our question for our trial word cloud for this strategy is describe your team engagement in a single word. Okay, so the first one we have is works. What I love about this site in comparison to other sites is that this is a live board. Most of the time with word clouds, you have to collect the words ahead of time, feed it in, and then it'll generate you one. This one does it real time. So what I'm seeing so far is timid, quiet, lacking, random, forced, works, great, warming, stagnant. One, these are fantastic words, like word choice, yes. Until forced showed up, they were all the same size, which is data that I can use. That means that everyone on my team is having a very different experience with what engagement looks like. Now, however, forced is becoming larger while other words are becoming smaller. So when I'm looking at this data, I'm seeing that these are things that I need to direct strategies towards. So in the rest of the presentation, I might be addressing ways that you can make engagement feel less forced or less timid. What are ways that you can bring more timid players out of their shells? One that we didn't talk about when we were talking about wait time, but I had one of my more timid participants not share ever. And then whenever I meet with her one-on-one, she'd have these fantastic ideas, but she would never share out loud. And so finally, one of these one-on-ones, I asked her what it was, and she has a hard time breaking into the conversation online, right? That was part of what was making her feel timid. What we set up was a strategy where anytime she felt like she needed to say something, she would just have a sticky note on screen, like I'm doing right now. And that was my cue to be like, oh, Cara, I think you mentioned something about this. The conversation has now been broken and Cara has an entrance in. I saw as soon as I said, like I'm doing on screen right now, Sid actually looked up because it's a subtle way that you can do some signaling, but it looks totally normal for everyone else in the meeting. My assumption is that Sid looked up when I said, like I'm doing right now, because someone just holding a sticky note on screen while they're talking or while other people are talking is not something that's out of the norm, but it is a strategy that you've now set up one-on-one with a timid participant so that they have access to come in. Then you start working on strategies for like, okay, hey, this sticky note is working great. I'd want to challenge you once per session to jump in without your sticky note. They're used to hearing your voice now. So when you speak up, they're going to listen. There's coaching that you can do around that. But bringing it back to this strategy with the word cloud, I only knew to share something like that strategy because timid was larger on the screen at that time. So word clouds can be fun ways to engage them, but it's also real-time data for you as a facilitator to know what you need to target the rest of the presentation towards. Questions, thoughts, ways that you could see using this or prompts that you could see using with your team?
Cara, I'll do a verbal comment this time instead of in chat. I think this is a good exercise and something. So the real time is nice. It's not dependent. This could be for internal and external teams. Sometimes teams have both. So it's not necessarily dependent on what's on the company laptop. So I like that it's an external site. I even like how even here in a kind of the safe space of coaches, how people are feeling does pop up. And so it is easy to see like one, okay, you're not alone in feeling this way. And then it gives the ability to see like, okay, people are feeling this a little forced or it feels quiet or stagnant. And so then that can kind of roll into one-on-ones with people. Like, so there's something they've seen in another meeting that we can incorporate that's really stood out to them, or they've seen change implemented for other people.
Definitely, definitely. Well, and even outside of the world of like building up those layers, I'm going to bring us back to the question is how do you want your teams to engage? So these aren't just activities that we're having them do because they're doing them, that's compliance, but engagement. So if you throw one of these out and you're like, what's your biggest blocker right now? And they're all the same size word, that's telling you that everyone on your team is experiencing something different. If one is growing big, growing smaller, now you know where the bigger areas are. You can bring that up in a retro. You can make sure that that's being addressed. Like, oh, hey, we need to pull that into a parking lot. Hey, if you're, XYZ, you need to like, please consider staying after our stand up to have this conversation. Questions, ideas.
So can you hear me?
I can.
So these words that grew large in size is because it's considered a pretty significant emotion for the context. Like stagnant became quite large. And I tried to play around with words to see if that'll grow large in size. I even put rude. I thought rude is a pretty triggering word for this context. How come it didn't grow into a significant size?
It's how many people have entered that word. So if 3 people have entered rude, it grows larger.
Okay.
Versus, so it's not the emotion behind the word.
But it's
There you
the
go, it just jumped. Yeah, it's how many times it's being put in. Now, I will say, when you're using a tool like this, you're gonna want to watch for synonyms. So like timid, quiet are both synonyms, right? So you might see timid, small, but they're related ideas. So then as you're reading through them, you're like, okay, this is a string of synonyms that is connected, like fatigued, overworked. Those might be synonyms for each other, but now you're establishing a pattern.
Okay. It's fascinating. I'm not sure how often people use it. I'd be curious to hear.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I enjoyed the most in the transition from education to more heavily Scrum-sided work was how many of the strategies that we use in the classroom to engage in increase engagement also translate for the outside world, especially when you're being intentional about asking, is this engagement or compliance? Right? Am I asking them to actually give me information that is worth their time? But a lot of those strategies that we use and we kind of box away as like educational tools can be great steps for increasing engagement as facilitators, as coaches.
Mhm. Excellent.
I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to our mural board and dive into strategy 7, which is timers, which feels like a total jump from the last one, but it helps with that time boxing and redirecting those conversations. It aids with the facilitation work. So if we're talking about what are tools for facilitators, especially what are tools for facilitators that we know are pedagogically sound, that are research based, and those are timers. There's a lot of different ways that you can use it as a Scrum Master or as a coach or facilitator. Mural itself, so if you choose to play around with a platform like the one that we're using here, has an embedded timer. YouTube has tons, so you can even screen share a YouTube piece. So you're having trouble, you're trying to work on that wait time piece, you could use an embedded timer for your team. If you are struggling to stay within your time boxing, make that part of the screen that you're sharing so that it's running down in the corner. That way everyone is accountable for how the time is being managed. Many lean coffee digital timers templates come with them built in, and then step 4, if you follow the arrow, has a link for directions for how you can embed a timer in Zoom itself. So it's one of those pieces. Let's see. And then Samira jumped in. We're approaching time. I'll ask the audience that we target about 10 more minutes before we end, and then the video will be available. Whew, we might have to speed through some of these strategies here to get through. So I might put a little speed on myself, put some hustle on my bustle. Sammy asked, could I ask if you've experienced the word cloud being influenced by groupthink? And the answer is yes. I tend to limit how long the cloud is up. So that first couple minutes that cloud was up, we were getting really great, a variety of answers, probably more authentically time for like the doubling of words. The longer it stayed up, the more people started playing with it. So I think coming back to timers, that might be one of those places. Samira, do you mind if I ask what time do you need me to stop the presentation for your next piece?
So the last piece will just be a wrap up and close. So I was going to ask the audience if we could go for maybe about 7-8 more minutes. And if anybody needs to drop off at the half hour exactly, no problem. We'll follow up with the video.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll kind of go a little more quickly through some of these. The next one, strategy 8, is strategic variety. I am throwing the book at you because this is a session on online engagement, but I would never use this many strategies in a single session with my participants, with my teams. I would pick the ones that are going to be most impactful, right? We're coming back to, are we going for engagement or compliance? What is the purpose of what you are asking them to do? Strategy 9 is visually posted directions. It increases focus, clear expectations. If someone wanders away, they can come back and see where we're at, what the task is that we're working on. And one of the pieces that I like to hit upon, especially in our increasingly virtual, interconnected world, is that English is not everyone's first language. And written language is much more comprehensible than spoken language. So if you are working with a team with someone who is not maybe native fluent or kind of is in and out depending on the topic, having the posted directions lets them process through, figure out what they want to say or how they want to respond, and then access the information and engage with the rest of the team. This last piece is our menu board, is my menu board strategy. So strategy 10 is menu boards. They provide autonomy. They're a great way to break up onboarding sessions when you're trying to give huge chunks of information to people. It's also an education, what we call differentiation. So for example, if you already use polling clouds, which is one of the strategies I have on my menu board, you don't want to sit through another lesson on menus or polling and word clouds. You understand how to use that. You can pick something else. You can do menu boards where it's pick 3 out of the 5. You can do menu boards where it's like you have to do all 5, but you can pick whatever order you want to do it in or how much time you want to devote. But it gives autonomy, which we know increases engagement because they're actually invested in what they're picking instead of just checking off boxes in the same way as complete this checklist of tasks. Normally what I do at this point is I set anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes for people to explore these strategies. So spend time clicking in. What I'll do today, because we went just a little long, is give you the strategies themselves, a basic walkthrough of how to access it, and then we'll move on to the next piece. But the topics I'd picked for this menu board are waiting room prompts. So that first exercise we did with the childhood movies, what are different ways that you can do it for taking the temperature, for accessing it in terms of the project that you're working on? To see the resource, you just click that link in the resource box and it'll take you to another mural because I do have a slight addiction. Or to another link itself where that website is. The next one is GimKit. This one's going to show you a walkthrough of the different types of games, different ways that they might be used for teams. The third one is Lean Coffee virtual templates. A lot of us have heard of Lean Coffee. We use it when we're in person, but how do we make that work in a digital at a digital world? These are some templates for doing that. The next one is if you're curious about learning more about polling and word clouds, which we explored a little bit today, there's some resources there. How to use Canva for graphic design. But we know that visual elements increase engagement. And so what are some ways that you can do that don't require you learning how to do everything from scratch? There are a lot of templates there that are easy to use and are really helpful for jumping spots for that kind of work. Different strategies for breakout rooms. One of the places where we know engagement drops off in our virtual settings is when we break out into smaller sessions. How do you keep them engaged? How do you make sure that they know what they're doing and what they're supposed to give you when they come back? There's some walkthroughs on ideas for that. And if you enjoyed emoji because blank, the last element on our menu board was chat prompts. So there's, I think, 7 of them in there that are of that similar vein of emoji because blank. How can you start pulling out higher order thinking in your chats? And I want to pause here. Are there questions? I went through that so fast.
Yeah, I do. I have a question. Do you use any kind of AI tool to go through the chat and kind of identify this is higher level versus lower level, like Copilot kind of going through transcribe?
I haven't for this. I also do a presentation on how you can use teaching strategies like higher level thinking, higher order thinking to create your chat prompts. I think it'd be a really great area to explore. When you're thinking about higher level chat prompts, the biggest entry point is how thinking about questions that can't be answered with yes or no. If you pose the question, they can be answered with yes or no. That's not going to necessarily be higher order. If you have something where they have to explain why it's yes or no, then you're getting there. You want to be posing questions that are going to force them to elaborate or give like a deeper answer than a single word piece in the chat.
Okay.
I would encourage you, if this is a topic that you're interested in, check out the mural that's attached for the chat prompts. There are a whole bunch of different examples in the resource page that can help you get there. So this is what it looks like. And then there's examples of how it might look in the chat itself. So directions for how to do it and then how it might look.
Oh, wow, this is fantastic.
I'm going to leave the access for this mural board up for at least several months. So please feel free to take time and look through the pieces that are most intriguing to you or that you think could be most beneficial for your team. I really believe that it's not a one size fits all, right? Not every team is going to engage with every strategy the same way. And you know your team better than anyone. That's our job as Scrum Masters, right? To listen and learn to how they communicate, how they function, how can we help them grow? So if that's something you're interested in, I would really check that one out. In the interest of time, I'm going to bring us to our mini retrospective, which is just right here at the end of our mural board. I'd love to have you guys.
Sorry to interrupt. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
way we can read, so I got ahead of myself, my apologies. So we have until 45 after. And since you're doing a retrospective inclusive, we can count that as questions. So I don't need to separate and end early. So apologies.
Oh, yeah, no. So we could vote for maybe 5 minutes to explore some of the things in the menu board and then 5 minutes for the mini retrospective, or we could head straight to the mini retrospective. So option 1 would be 5 minutes for the board. Option 2 is just head straight towards the mini retrospective. If you want to put a 1 or a 2 in the chat for your vote, for which, or hold up your finger if you're on camera. Option 1 is 5 minutes to explore the board, 5 minutes for retrospective. Option 2 is head straight to retrospective. Excellent. I'm seeing a few votes. All right. All right. So what I'll do here, it's tied. There are 2 people on camera with 1 and 2 people in the chat with 2, and the rest of you didn't vote. I see you. Here's what I'll say. I'll stay on until Samira boots me off. So if you are interested in continuing for that 5 minutes, go ahead and spend 5 minutes on the board. If you are ready to move to the next piece, the retrospective is there and it's interactive for you. If you want to grab the little dot, and I'd love you to rank where you are. So strategies that you learned for tomorrow. And I'd love for you to click into the sticky notes and tell me what's something you want to try with your team and what's something you want to learn more about. If you are wanting to explore a little more, we'll spend that 5 minutes on the menu board and then we'll head to the retrospective. If you're like, wow, this was a lot of information, like I said, this will still be available. If you have the link, it won't close. There's also underneath the retrospective an engagement strategy summary sheet. So it's a Google Doc with a summary of everything we've talked about tonight.
Where did you say the summary sheet was? Oh, I see it. Never mind. I found it. Okay.
You're good.
Awesome. These are so many great ideas. I just feel like you've just given us a treasure trove of things to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. If you have questions as you're clicking through things, like feel free. Oh, that was the other piece that we normally do when we're doing the menu boards. I'm going to interrupt one more time. In the fourth quadrant that says group ideas, if you have a strong idea for how you would use a strategy, I would encourage you to drop a sticky note into that fourth quadrant with your ideas so that the rest of the group can benefit from it and maybe use that in their own practice. Thank you, Mark. Oh, I love we're starting to see sticky notes dropped in with people's ideas. That's excellent. All right, at this time, we have about 3 minutes left in our session, so I am going to pause us. But like I said, this board will be available going forward. So if you're like, oh, I just started doing a thing, feel free, stay in, come back. I'm going to bring us over to our retrospective piece if you haven't already. So it's a drag and drop on the scale, strategies that I can use with my team tomorrow. I've used that one on to start just general retrospectives, like how did this sprint go? And they can drag their dot from one side to the other. And boy, sometimes you'll get information you didn't know you needed from that. But also steps, right? Next steps for accountability. What's something you want to try with your team? What's something that you want to try, but maybe you want to learn a little bit more about first? It sets the task for the audience, for your participants, also gives you data as the facilitator for things that you need to hit more next time, things that you need to discuss less next time. I want to thank you for your patience. We kind of powered through the last chunk, the last half of the strategies, but I really appreciated the engagement in the chat, the ideas that you've been willing to share, the sticky notes that are getting shared right now with all those fantastic ideas. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Samira.
Thank you everyone for joining this evening. If you need to drop, you're welcome to. And for anyone who'd like to stay, we can take Cara up on her offer of staying and having a little bit more time with her.
Thanks, everybody. I feel like we got through it all. So
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. This is great. It looks like a lot of information, but good information.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you can always visit our YouTube channel to just go look, to get more. If you have a question there or something didn't resonate well or you didn't get it well, you can always go back to the YouTube and check on that.
So that will be our official close, Cara, and then back to you. Or do we want to check in with the audience to see what to jump back to?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
So
let's
perhaps
see.
are there pieces that you would like a talk through? Are there questions? Are we just needing more time to explore what's on the board?
Maybe we could evaluate some of what's something you want to learn more about in case you have any of those to put into context.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a fantastic idea. All right, so our first one is all the strategies have been awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Overcoming compliance when you are aiming for engagement. So compliance isn't necessarily bad, right? They're completing tasks, they're getting their work done. They are you are moving forward. Engagement is that next level. And really my biggest successes with engagement over just pure compliance have been when I'm offering choice, when I'm offering autonomy, which we know Sutherland talks about with his happiness index, with his I can't remember if he calls it the happiness index or happiness matrix, but he talks a lot about we are most happy when we have choice over what's being done. And so my biggest piece when I see engagement is when I'm offering opportunity, where I might, as the facilitator, be presenting some choices, but they're the ones that are choosing which one we're going forward with. So offering a variety of different strategies that you can pick from, even saying something like, hey, I know that you really liked emoji because chat, and we've also tried this one. Would you rather we use this strategy or this strategy in the chat today? That can increase it on a smaller level. Questions on that? I don't know if I hit all the points there. Excellent. And then I'm going to come back to chat prompts in a second. So I'm going to skip to the other one, is how to use strategies with leaders. Often they don't have the time for engagement and have to move through the meetings quickly. So my number one strategy with that would be to start small and build your way up. So a lot of times, and I know I keep bringing it back to education, but a lot of times in education, we say you have to go slow to go fast, right? So once you get one type of strategy under your belt, your team will be able to move fast. So if you introduce all of them at the same time, your team will get bogged down because they're trying to learn so many new strategies, so many new techniques. But if you introduce one and then they've got that and then later use another one, so that can often be a really great way to start seeding through smaller pieces that then become common practice without bogging down the entire machine. Has anyone else had any success with starting to get some of these engagement strategies through when you feel like you've got tight deadlines? Awkward wait time.
And it makes me think of, I do have to reflect on with the team, how they're feeling. The teams that I work with often aren't in the same departments, and it's the first time they're doing the project together. It's usually a one-time project for launch delivery or MVP. So if it's feeling like compliance for them, so for example, sometimes we're asked to do celebrations, but the team does that very naturally. So a separate section isn't there. I try to relate to how me picking out the celebrations and providing that as a list and say, hey, can I share this with the larger team? We've done this exercise already. So kind of sense checking what we're asked to do so we could still fulfill the purpose, but maybe we're capturing it or doing that in a different type of way.
I love that too, because then it doesn't put someone on the spot to brag about themselves or to brag about their teams, which some teams really have trouble with. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's no need to do the same activity multiple times. If the team's already done it and they've already met it, that's like they've engaged with that process, and now we're asking for compliance on top of that, right? We've asked them to engage, they did the task, they shared the pieces that were important to them, and now we're asking them to do it again. No, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. All right, and then I'm gonna circle this to the last one, is the chat prompts or integration with ChatGPT and user stories. There's so much to explore with AI, and this could be its own presentation in itself. There are ways that you can prompt ChatGPT to give you some strategies. I don't know if that's where this was geared toward, or if this was geared more towards the like, how do you create higher order thinking questions. If it was me prompting chat GPT, I would do something like, you are an experienced Scrum Master with a background in increasing participant engagement and reflective practices on teams. You need to come up with 4 to 5 chat prompts that will produce reflections on, and then a list of those things. So I do another presentation on how to create strong chat prompts, but essentially the first piece is you assign the AI, so the GPT, whichever one you're using, you assign them a role. You're a highly qualified Scrum Master with a background in XYZ. Then you assign them a task. You need to create you need to create 4 to 5 prompts that will encourage group reflection on 1, 2, 3, or whatever that topic is. And then you push enter. So once you've set the role, you give it a task, and then you enter, and then you can follow up with more questions like, make this more understandable for a software developer. Or if you're working with your product owner, maybe your product owner doesn't have as much of a background in some sort of piece of it. Make this understandable for someone without a background in JavaScript. Your follow-up questions are how you prompt it to go one way or the other. So you can, maybe one of your maybe all of the 4 to 5 prompts it generated for you are very serious. So you could do a sub prompt or follow prompt where you like gamify 2 of these options so that they are, you can say, more fun, more engaging, more interactive, and then it'll change and adjust with what your sub prompts are pushing it towards.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. And I think those are our 4. If you have questions as you are like chewing on these things, my contact information is on the board, and feel free to reach out. We can do a one-on-one, or we can just message back and forth. I'd love to connect, and I think we all get stronger when we grow together.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would
you. Have a
agree.
good
I think
night.
that's why I like the coaching 6 so much, is because we have that opportunity to grow together. So as much as it's teaching, it's also learning and hearing what people did what they might do differently, and I can take those things away and apply tomorrow. So I really like that. Thank you so much, Cara, for your time. I will be definitely taking you up on the offer to stay connected. And then to the team here and people from the replay in the future, we will include the links that were provided, resources, for example, to the book. That looks like a great resource, to the different tools that she provided, like the polling and the gaming. So that was all really neat. So that way, if anybody didn't catch what all the sites were, we have them for future. Thanks so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you, Samira. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. We made it flexibly. We got there.
And thank you, Frank. I appreciate it too.
I'm trying to connect with you on LinkedIn because I need to get with you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
This is good.
Actually, Carrie, if we could hold on just for a minute. Fran, could you stop the recording?
Yeah, sure.